Good evening and welcome to Wrestling Rewind. I am your host, Angel Amoroso, and I am joined by my co-host, the Iron Man, Tommy Cairo. Tommy?
What's up? How are you?
And this evening on Wrestling Rewind, we're getting into a book reading for Wrestling Archives.
Yes.
Tommy, would you like to tell us about the book that we're getting into?
We're using tonight the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, the Canadians. I picked this because originally to be a present, my whole family's hooked up to eat to Crowbar Press. So every holiday, whatever, I pick a book, I get a book. So
Great.
I picked this because of the crossover. All the states that border Canada, into Canada, back and forth. Guys that made their careers that were Americans, that made their careers mostly in Canada, and it's all kinds of back and forth. So I thought it would cover quite a few guys that I already knew, and then a bunch that I didn't know. So we're going to start with the very maniacal Mad Dog Vashon.
Oh,
One
nice.
of my favorites. Yep, classic heel.
Bravo.
During his farewell tour of Quebec in 1986, Maurice Mad Dog Bashan made the remarkable transformation from despised wrestler to beloved popular icon. Just as he was hanging up his boots for the last time, doors were finally opening for him. Interviews both in print and on the air praised his contribution to society. He was hired to hawk beer and chocolate bars. He wrote his autobiography, made a rap album in French, and most bizarrely, the veteran of more than 16,000 bouts over 40 years.
Wow. That's a lot of wrestling.
Yes. Was tapped to be a restaurant reviewer.
Oh.
Okay.
It's a man of many hats.
Yes. Did I show you this? No, I showed you the cover only. So this is Maurice at his young age, fit look. I mean, the guy's like, he looks like he's 6'3". And I know he wasn't that
beefy.
Yeah.
Big, beefy, thick dude.
Yeah. Probably
yeah.
a farmer. Probably took care of the cows.
Right.
The words Canadian icon have rarely suited a better man. The love that the public had for Vashon became even more apparent a year after his retirement when he was struck by a car while walking with his third wife, Kathy, in Des Moines, Iowa. Vashon had his right leg amputated below the knee. Wow. The story was carried by media across Canada, and he was flooded with letters from well-wishers.
Terrible.
Yeah. The tale of Maurice Bashan would be amazing enough without his accession into mainstream culture. Born in Villa Armand, a working-class neighborhood in Montreal in 1929, Bashan was the second of 13 children. His father was a strong man who worked for the local police force. Teased about his name, Vashon Le Cochon, Maurice got into many scraps as a youth. At 12, his father started him training in amateur wrestling at the Montreal YMCA. That's where you had to go back then. Schools didn't have it.
Sure.
Maurice dropped out of school at 13 to work various jobs and pursue his athletic endeavors. Encouraged by his father, Maurice took to wrestling quickly and made the Canadian Olympic team for the 1948 London Games. When you walk into the stadium at Wembley in London, there's probably 6,000 athletes there. King George VI is there, the Queen, and they play our national anthem. It gives you goose pimples, Bashan said. The Montrealer competed at 174 pounds and finished in 7th place, eliminated in the third round by Joe Scarpello at the Games. Underrated by his Olympic defeat, undeterred by his Olympic defeat, Bashan rebounded in 1950 to claim gold at the British Empire Games, the forerunner of the Commonwealth Games. In New Zealand, when you wrestle professional, the money goes in your pocket, Bashan said. When you wrestle amateur, the medals, they go in your heart. It's a nice way to say it.
Yeah.
Growing up, Bashan had always been a fan of the pro game. And upon his return to Canada, he wrestled a bit around Montreal before heading to Northern Ontario for the Kazabaskis, which was a summer territory. The 5'8", 240-pound Bashan was a hit, and other opportunities soon came along. Now, would you look at that picture we showed before? Could you? He looks like he's 6'1".
Yeah.
So had to be pretty. He's lean. I guess. not lean, but not heavy.
Right, right.
Gives you that appearance.
Stocky.
The older you get, the heavier you get, the shorter you look.
Right, right.
Mad
Probably looks
Dog,
5'4" at the end.
yeah, exactly. I'm sawed up and hammered down, 6 inches
Right.
less.
Exactly.
Mad Dog had an instant reputation when he started wrestling professional because he had been a bouncer in a Montreal nightclub. He never lost a street fight. He loved to fight, said his brother Paul. Vashon was in Hawaii when he first met Portland promoter Don Owens, who invited him to come to his territory. Vashon attacked his opponents, the referee, and a ringside police officer before the bell in his Pacific Northwest debut and was disqualified, fined, and suspended. Yeah, good for him.
There you go. That's a way to start.
Yeah. Owen told him then that he looked like a mad dog, and the nickname stuck, as did Owen's decision to bill Vashon as hailing from Algeria. For the next 30 years, Mad Dog carved out a reputation for himself around the globe. With his shaved head and clipped mustache and beard, Vashon would drape himself in chains while growling through his interviews. As time wore on, his larynx took more and more of a beating. His voice became better suited to his character. Could you imagine? That's crazy.
Raspy.
Yes, I mean, he turned it into what it needed to be.
Right.
According to Killer Kowalski, Vashon would carry that character with him outside the ring. One time we went to the bar outside Minneapolis. Someone gave him a little flack and he beat the crap out of the guy. Took a jar or something like that and hit the guy over the head with it. He said with a laugh. Vashon's biggest successes by far came in the AWA out of Minneapolis, where he was well matched against Vern Gagne, and in Montreal, where he ran the Grand Prix wrestling promotion in the 1970s, partnering with his brother Paul, Yvonne Robert Jr., and others. He was also extremely well known for tag teams, one with his brother Paul the Butcher, and together they held the AWA tag titles for a long time.
Butcher Vashon.
Yeah. He was heavier and bigger.
Yeah.
And nowhere near the mean guy that his brother was.
Mm-hmm.
The other was his teaming with Baron von Raschke, a partnership that had its heyday in Montreal. Baron von Raschke was one of my best partners in wrestling. We were very successful together. Not to diminish the prestige of my brother Paul the Butcher when we were teamed together. As far as I am concerned, the Mad Dog and Baron von Raschke were the oddest and most explosive tag team in wrestling history.
Oh, wow.
Wrestling solo, Vashon had epic feuds with the likes of Gagne, Kowalski, Wild Bill Curry, and faced all the top talent from his era. In Montreal, the Vashons were never feuding with the Rougeaus, were forever feuding with the Rougeaus and the Ledukes. Over the last number of years, Vashon has continued to put in occasional appearances with various promotions, including a memorable ringside seat at a WWF pay-per-view event where his prosthesis was used as a weapon in the match. He lives in Omaha, Nebraska with his wife, Kathy, and manages to travel to Hawaii every year for a vacation. Give credit where credit is due. Mad Dog knows how to be the Mad Dog and lives it every day. Continuing to dye his mustache and beard black. Loosely translated, the title of Vashon's 88 autobiography, Une vie de chien dans un monde de focus, means the life of a dog in a world of crazies.
Okay. The original.
Yeah. He has also been the subject of an hour-long documentary on the Comedy Network called Wrestling with the Past, where he told stories and hammered for the camera. According to the series director, John Dolan, Mad Dog's magic has never left. When he gets into a character and starts growling, it's hysterical, and it's still powerful. He is a strong man still and brings crazy energy at his age.
I bet.
Yeah. I mean, that was one of the, if you watched him, it's like, you had
never short on entertainment quality.
Yeah. I mean, without the crazy guys, you wouldn't be nothing to be worried about,
Right.
Mm-hmm. One-man riot squads. All right.
Awesome stuff.
Let's see where we're going to go to next. Let's see. Page 24.
It comes from a long family line.
Yeah, and the
Really
French,
long.
yeah, and the Rougeaus, the French and the French Canadians. They
Mm.
all wrestle. There's like 7 or 8 of them.
Right,
Yeah, it's crazy.
right.
All right, now we got a really old school guy, Gene Kaniski.
Oh, there we go.
He was world NWA world champion before whoever had it before Flair. Right? I'm a little rusty. I'll have to look that up. But I'm looking at the ring in this picture, and it's like you can see the wood on it. You see it? It's
Yes.
like, that's wood. It's have wooden
Wow.
rings. Yeah. God knows what that felt like.
Yeah.
All right. So that was him under the ring. It says an enraged Gene Kaniski under the ring, hiding from Whipper Watson at Maple Leaf Gardens in 1957. Yeah, you weren't going to get away with an easy night with a guy like Whipper Watson.
Mm.
All right, here we go. Gene Kaniski. Stamina is a word that describes Gene Kaniski perfectly, whether it was a 90-minute championship match or a spirited rant on the microphone. Big Thunder never lacked for energy or self-confidence, making his claim that he was Canada's greatest athlete all the more credible. And we know who took that after a while. Mike
Yeah.
Sharp.
Right. Right.
Yep, he stole it. Canada's greatest athlete, all the more credible because of who he really was. Even today, Kaniski is still big on making bold declarations. Hey, I was always in great shape. I was never out of shape. Hell, I'm 73 years old and I still work out 5 days a week. And said Kaniski, if my knees were good, I honestly really think I could still wrestle. Christ, it would be good to work out with the Olympic team. The secret to Gene Kaniski's success was that he could back up his constant boasting and bragging. Too often, people refer to him as a football player turned wrestler. But Kaniski got into grappling in his teens at Edmonton's YMCA and got addicted to it. It didn't hurt that he was 195 pounds at age 15. Kaniski was a champion. Yeah, as a big guy.
Yeah.
And, they didn't have all the supplements and all the, the best.
No, you're talking about a 15-year-old that is almost 200
Yeah.
pounds, just shy of 200 pounds. That's not easy to, yeah, of course you got growth spurts, but who's 15 years old is 200 pounds.
I would venture to say probably from a dairy, they work on a dairy farm. They ate eggs, they drank milk, they
big
ate
good old boys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No steroids.
Right.
Okay, where was I? Yeah, he says the secret to Gene Kaniski's success was that he could back up his constant boasting and bragging. Blah, blah, blah. He worked at Edmonton's YMCA and got addicted to it. It didn't hurt that he was 195 at age 15. Kaniski was a champion amateur wrestler, both in Alberta as a youth and later at Arizona University. Football was a sideline for him, and he elected to play in his hometown of Edmonton rather than for the Los Angeles Rams, simply because there was more money. Wow, to be made at home. His parents, Nick and Julia Kaniski, were well known in the community. Julia served as a city councilor for years and was involved in the CCF political party. Kaniski played football for only 4 years before he was forced to retire from the game in 1953 because of a knee injury. He started wrestling professionally in Tucson, Arizona for Rod Fenton. Kaniski had already met many pro wrestlers over the years. When I was still at the University of Arizona, I used to work out with the pros like Tony Morelli and Dory Funk Sr., he said. Mm-hmm. Kaniski dismisses the common assertion that Stu Hart trained him. That's a fallacy, he spat, saying that he wrestled with Hart at the YMCA a few times, but that was it. The transition to pro was relatively smooth, and Kaniski absorbed all the knowledge he could in and out of the ring. In my early career, I get in the ring with a guy like Lou Thez. He could look at you and hurt you. He just had so many moves. Just going along, you learn as you progress. It's just like a carpenter having a lot of tools. What good is it if you don't know how to use them? So you just try to perfect certain hold-in moves that suited your style. Kaniski's style might be described as a 6'5", 275-pound freight train barreling down the tracks, knocking obstacle after obstacle out of the way with a loud growl. And he had that like high and tight, haircut. You look like a Marine,
Right. Very intimidating.
Yep. Lord James Blears, often tagged with Kaninsky in the 1950s in California and recalled the hatred he elicited. He was a big, rugged bastard. He'd go plowing into 50 people. We were attacked every night. In California, that's unbelievable. Gene and I would, I'm not kidding you, we had to fight our way out of the ring. We couldn't get out. The fans wanted to kill us. Kaninsky's ring accomplishments could fill an entire chapter. Kaninsky held titles everywhere he went and became a true wrestling superstar. Though best known for his 3-year NWA world title reign from 66 to 69, many forget that he also held the AWA world title in 61 and the WWA world title in 65. He is still revered in Japan today and goes on a tour there at least once a year. Both of Kaninsky's sons, Nick and I know Kelly. I've seen Kelly Kaninsky. I don't know if I've seen Nick. That's two of his sons. Became pro wrestlers for a short period as well, but not before they were well grounded in their fundamentals of amateur wrestling, like their dad had been. They wrestled all their lives. Nick wrestled at Simon Fraser. Kelly went to West Texas State. According to Nick, the amateur background helped get him out of many in-ring jams caused by his father. Sometimes I'd get in the ring and guys would try to wrestle with me. Your father used to do this to me and try to rub my face in the mat or something. Nick recalled with a laugh, I just had such an extensive background in wrestling against world champions, Olympic champions, that they're not going to do much with me. Big Thunder Kaninsky was a natural self-promoter, comfortable on the air under any circumstances. He loved politics and would read the local newspapers in the towns he visited to learn what was going on and what buttons to push with the crowd. He was a quote machine. Kaninsky still has people asking him to sign off, say his sign-off catchphrase, made popular during his years in the Vancouver All-Star Wrestling promotion, which he co-owned. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank my fellow Canadians and American viewing audience for allowing me into their TV. And as usual, Ron, you did a superb job, he would say, as host Ron Morier struggled to get a word in edgewise. That's pretty cool. So he knew what to do.
Right.
Yeah, the cauliflower ears, the cropped hair, that big, that strong. You know, he hits you he hurts you just with his elbow. You know,
they all had a different look back then, and they were a different kind of strong. Like a natural strong without the steroids or anything like that, and just like powerful guys, and would do things to you that to cause cauliflower and literally cripple you sometimes.
Yeah.
Hookers and whatnot.
It's all rubbing and anytime when you see an amateur that has cauliflower ears or like a kid in college, he's getting it somewhere beside the mat.
Oh,
in college,
absolutely.
Got to wear it. So that means he's out somewhere doing, the whatever they call them. Got all kinds of names, sports fest, this, that.
Right, exactly.
And that's why his ears are like that.
Uh-huh.
All right, we got a big one next time. This one, Roddy Piper.
All right.
Okay, early, heavy gig there.
Awesome.
I imagine that's. You ready?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right, here we go. Over the years, in countless interviews, media skits, and websites, Roddy Piper's story has been told again and again, and it's been different every time. He's loud, outspoken, funny, and sometimes totally off the wall. Perhaps that's what makes him such a fascinating figure. And the reason that he's been hated and loved as one of the greatest wrestlers of the last 25 years. The basic facts aren't hard to come by. He was born Roderick Toombs in Saskatoon in November 1956. His father worked for the Canadian National Railway as a police officer, and they moved to many different outposts over the years. I don't know what this means, the PAS, P-A-S, for his first year at school. I don't know. Then Dauphin, Port Arthur, Dawson Creek, Winnipeg, Montreal, Toronto, not to mention Glasgow, Scotland, and Melbourne, Australia. We moved all the time. I was always the new kid on the block. I was always getting beaten up, said Piper. Young Roddy and his father clashed, and he was out on his own at 13.
Oh.
Or was it 12? The numbers never agreed. Among the places he lived as a street kid was Toronto. In 1972, Roddy drifted into the life of Tony Condello. I don't know. Do you know who Tony Condello is? He would take these guys on this death tour. They would call it up through all the Indian reservations. Like brutal, brutal. You know.
What years was this?
This
During
was like in the early 70s. We will do that for an episode because it's
yes,
crazy.
Absolutely. I want to know more about that.
Yep. There's actually a documentary on it, but I'll see what they have in print.
Yeah, we will get to that.
It's good. Let's see. So when he met Tony Condello, who was just starting up a wrestling school in Winnipeg, he was 17 years old. He must have been a giant now.
Wow.
This kid approached me and said he wanted to be a wrestler. I taught him. I gave him that name and that gimmick that he holds, Condello said. He was with me until 74, 75 at least. His first match was June 5th, 1973. Piper recalled that first match was pretty short and that he was soundly defeated by the Axe, Larry Hennig, that's Kurt's dad, who outweighed him by 150 pounds. The Piper surname came about because the ring announcer couldn't remember his actual last name, and Roddy was playing the bagpipes on his way to the ring, a skill he had been practicing since age 5. That's cool.
Yeah, really cool. Roddy Piper, just the best and everything.
Ahead of his time, you know.
Promos and and then he went into acting after wrestling, which was just even more incredible. Yeah, look at him there,
the kid,
young buck there. Yeah. But yeah, always great at like in every area of wrestling. So
I just used to get a little worried when he was doing some of his promos because I think he was going off the tracks there a couple times.
Right. It looked like he was going to blow a gasket a few times, but he knew how to put it on a show, boy.
He was. Let's see. Here's this is what makes him is his mouth. You know.
Of course.
Yeah. During the at least part of his 2 years in Winnipeg, Piper said he actually lived in Al Tomko's house. He made me paint all the weights. So what I did was take a 45-pound weight and paint 30 pounds and messed all the weights around. Great entertainment there for myself. So now the guy thinks he's getting weak. He's like, what the hell? That's great. That's great. Some of what was to make Piper a big star was already in evidence in Winnipeg, Condello said. I knew he had a lot of potential. I knew he was pretty good yapping. I figured out one of these days this kid will hit. He had something about him that nobody else in the club had. Of course, I never knew he was going to be such a big star. He took his act on the road to Kansas City, Portland, Texas, and eventually to Southern California. In 75, where Gene and Mike Lavelle turned him into a superstar who dominated the territory, winning both singles and tag titles. I remember that as it was happening. I had to go to my neighbor's house who had UHF. You had to go to 13U and then get another dial and go to 47, all Spanish commercials. But we didn't care.
Worth it, right?
Yeah. He went, he worked for Gene and Mike, turned him into a superstar who dominated the territory, winning both singles and tag titles. Piper had too many mentors to credit. When I got into wrestling, I went from having nothing to having 100 fathers, he said. These guys taught me the ways of life, brought me up. As a young rookie on the totem pole, Piper had to do what he was told. I owe my whole career to everybody but myself, he said. The structure by which I was taught, you need to keep your mouth shut at all times, write nothing down, keep everything in your head, shut your mouth, and give it your all at all times. He had some issues as a young guy.
Absolutely.
One story concerning a match with Mad Dog, we just read about, Bashan, illustrates his point. I'm wrestling Mad Dog. I'm on the floor, and he picks up the stairs that you used to climb in the ring, and he throws them down on my head. He hit me on the jaw and just went, kaboom. I know, don't give up. I've been taught, just go back in there. Bashan came looking for Roddy in the dressing room. Here comes Mad Dog. You cocksucker. I didn't know that. I didn't know that was a nice name for me. He said, you travel with me. And the reason was that I didn't quit. So I guess you want to school him on the road now, Now I remember seeing with a friend of ours. I'll tell you later. It was get hit in the head with a heavy set of stairs that Taz dropped on his. No, it was a stool. The stool was like 90 pounds. When I tell you, dropped it right on his head.
Oh.
Yep. After a stint in
Sometimes
Port,
people just don't think before they do stuff. They just pick
yeah,
stuff up laying around.
yeah,
You get carried
yeah,
away. The adrenaline's pumping.
yeah.
So sometimes it's just purely a mistake. Got to think of it that way.
Hopefully, you go, oh, it's a work.
Right. Hmm.
Now I can see it. It could happen. Blah, blah, blah. The reason he didn't quit, so he wanted to teach the kid. After his stint in Portland, had a first go at the WWF in '79, but was deemed too small at 6'2", 235 pounds to be a star in the big man's territory. What a joke! So he hooked
Wow.
up with Georgia Championship Wrestling, which was just beginning to be noticed on Ted Turner's TBS Superstation. Both there and subsequently in Charlotte, when the promotion merged with Jim Crockett Promotions, Piper was a superstar. He could talk and talk and talk, whether it was a color commentator beside Gordon Solie, or cutting a promo for a feud. Most importantly, he could back up his words in the ring. That ability to rile a crowd with words and actions would shoot Piper straight to superstardom in the WWF in 1984. Wow, that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
He arrived just as the wave broke, sending pro wrestling into mainstream consciousness. In fact, by booting Cyndi Lauper, setting up the first WrestleMania, Piper wasn't just there. He kickstarted the rock and wrestling connection. WrestleMania was basically an accident. The war to settle the score was the big one, he explained. At War, which aired on MTV, a lot of stuff happened that wasn't going to happen, like the New York City police jumping into the ring. And also, I got to tussle with them. Wow. Next thing I know, I see something blonde coming out. And I turned and kicked. You can see it. I tried to pull the kick. Field goal, Cyndi Lauper. Oh, and it exploded. I don't know exactly what he's talking about.
Oh.
Cyndi Lauper was there. But that
Maybe he kicked her in the head.
maybe with that
Yeah.
bad
Sounds
New York,
like.
yeah, that bad New York accent.
Yeah. Wow.
Yep.
All right.
So Piper was on top in the WWF until his retirement match against adorable Adrian Adonis at the third WrestleMania at the Pontiac Silverdome. But he would return on many other occasions, including a run with the Intercontinental Belt, his only WWF title. The main reason Piper took time off from wrestling was to start an acting career. Best known for his starring role in John Carpenter's They Live, Piper has done numerous other flicks, including Jungle Ground, No Contest, Marked Man, and Hell Comes to Frogtown. So
One
none
of
of
the
those
more
ring a
popular
bell.
ones. Yeah.
In 1996,
Good
Piper,
stuff. Good stuff.
yeah. I remember watching They Live. I remember that.
Yeah.
In 1996, Piper was signed by World Championship Wrestling and quickly resumed his legendary feud with Hulk Hogan. With their roles now reversed, the babyface Piper was unable to wrest the WCW World Belt from the heel Hogan, though he came very close on many occasions. Since disappearing from the WCW scene, Piper has acted in various roles, written his autobiography, and worked on various business ventures, including a stab at promoting small shows. He lives in Oregon with Kitty, his wife of more than 20 years, and their 6 children. How long ago did he die?
It's been quite a while now.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I mean,
Half the time
recent decade, I guess.
you got to stop and think if they're alive or not. I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
Is he alive? I don't know. It's terrible.
Yeah. It's just so many people are passing so quickly. It's
Yeah.
like you can't keep track
Nope.
of even how long.
You want to do another
So
one?
was yeah. Let's get into one more if we have a chance.
Yeah. I'll tell you what. We can do John and Chris Tolis, Stomper, Archie Gouldy, or Stu Hart.
Stu Hart. Let's get
Yeah,
in Stu Hart.
that's
Yeah.
right. That's what he said when they brought Dynamite back. Yeah, he's a skinny bastard. He was. Hey, but I'll tell you, those other Harts that couldn't wrestle worth a lick, they had other attributes because whoever it was that saw him was Bruce or Keith or whatever could see what. Plus, all
It
you
was
have to do is look at
inside, yeah.
anything he did earlier in England. Just by that you'd have to hire him.
Right.
But he probably was 150 pounds.
Good they had people with vision and not just
Yeah.
sight.
Yeah. Oh, that's not him. It's too hard. 44. 44. Page 44. See, we're using a book. This is a book, young people.
Yes. It's not the internet. It's not Google. It's not Wikipedia. Although we don't knock that system.
No. We're taking it
it's always
back
nice to have an
everything.
actual card back in your hand.
Yeah. We're taking everything back.
Yes.
We're using books now.
Yes.
Okay. Stu Hart.
The rewind to books.
Yeah.
Oh, Stu Hart. Look at that young man.
Pretty good looking guy, right?
Yeah. And not huge.
They lived on the Canadian prairie in the snow, these people. I mean,
right.
All right. Stu Hart. At this point, the story of Stu Hart has grown beyond fact and entered the land of myth. No man could possibly have done so much for wrestling and his city. No man could possibly have inflicted so much pain. Oh! No man could possibly have had a hand in training so many superstars. No man could possibly have suffered so much publicly. Yes, Stu Hart has experienced it and more. And in 2001, he was finally recognized for it by his peers with the Iron Mike Mazurki Award, the Cauliflower Alley Club's highest honor, and by his country with his appointment to the Order of Canada. I'm going to take a little swig.
Nice. And he definitely deserves it, like a lot more than a lot of people who have gotten inducted into the Cauliflower Alley Club.
All
team and whatever they do. Yep. Yeah, people that we don't even know. Yep. But go on. I'm sorry.
Yes, Stu Hart has experienced it and more. In 2001, he said Cauliflower Alley's highest honor, and by his country, the appointment to the Order of Canada. Stuart Edward Hart's story comes out of the depths of the Depression in rural Alberta. Living in poverty gave him a determination to succeed in life, and he chose to start amateur wrestling in Edmonton in 1930. Athletics was a way out for him, and he succeeded in baseball and football too, playing for the Edmonton Eskimos. What's it like playing out there on the field outside?
Yeah, right. I guess he was at the Y too, part of the Y wrestling team.
Oh yeah.
They all were.
That was the only place you could go,
Sure. Yeah, you got to do where you can get it.
Yeah. Stu Hart loves to tell stories of his early days learning the skills of submission wrestling. I went through 3 or 4 years of being a guinea pig. My dog's trying to get in.
That's okay.
Anyway, yeah, who are we trying to get?
At least we unraveled the mystery of the sound, but we really don't need to know that. A little scratching is, just for sound effect. And we don't have to pay for it. It's not a copyrighted sound.
Exactly.
We'll leave it in there. It's good. Keep it going. Scratch some more, doggy.
Yes.
Go on, Tommy.
Okay. He went through 3 or 4 years of being a guinea pig where the good wrestlers would grab me, shove my head between my knees, and put my knees over my head and knock me out.
Oh.
Suffocating you, if they could, and rub my elbows together behind my head.
Oh.
Sometimes my forehead was down, touching my belly button, and make my neck 3 feet longer than it was.
Why didn't they just give him Indian burns and slap his stomach? This is like bully, like elementary school bullies. It sounds like.
But there's
terrible.
When we train our soldiers, we train them as hard as possible because they're probably going to get into something much worse.
Oh, so, absolutely. I agree.
Well, that's why they didn't smarten up the Green Boys in Japan until they were ready to make their debut, and they tortured them daily. Horrible.
Yeah,
that's what this was like. Mm-hmm. Sometimes my forehead was down, touching my belly button and making my neck 3 feet longer than it was. And see how many times I could get twisted around. Finally, after 3 or 4 years, the world started turning, and I was directing traffic a little bit. Finally, I got to the point where the boys who used to use me as practice dummy, I was using them.
Nice.
That's nice. When World War II broke out, Hart enlisted in the Navy. He was used to entertain the troops with wrestling exhibitions against the likes of Sandor Kovacs and Al Corman. Hart was always in tremendous shape. In 1946, he walked into a restaurant in New York City. There was a big guy sitting there with cauliflower ears. I went by him and looked up. You got a big neck on you, kid. The guy was local promoter Toots Mon.
Oh.
And he was an old-time wrestler before he was a promoter. I thought maybe you'd wrestled with that neck on you. I'd like you to come to work for me. I told him I couldn't right now. I had to go back to the service. He gave me his card then and told me to get through the Navy, come down, and join him. When the war ended, Hart headed back to New York and started his pro career. In New York, as a pro, Stu Hart was rough and tough, as was expected from prairie stock. But he was also an attractive young man who caught the eye of many. A female fan, including his wife, Helen Smith, who he met and married in New York City. Angelo Zavaldi fought Stu Hart many, many times around the American Northeast. He was a good wrestler, Zavaldi said. He was good right from the beginning. I think he was just born a wrestler. You know, and that has a lot to do with stuff too. You know, there's got to be something to genetics, because how does it, like, look at the Samoans. Look, they can't all not.
There's so many wrestling families too, and then there's offsprings of cousins and nephews and grand, and we'll get into that in a later episode.
And there's always one or two don't make it, but usually most of them do.
But a lot do. Yeah. Amazing wrestling families.
Yeah. Hart wasn't a top competitor in the wrestling ranks in New York, so he headed west to improve his standing. In the Dakotas, he really started to learn the behind the scenes of wrestling, and in 1948 began promoting matches in Edmonton. The promotion was initially called Big Time Wrestling, then Wildcat Wrestling, and when Calgary became the base Stampede Wrestling. Hart would wrestle on a regular basis until the 60s, and later, when needed, he would still don the tights.
Wow.
Yeah, what a story.
Very admirable.
What we'll do is when I find my stash of books, I got Bret Hart's book, and that's like this, and it talks about how they lived. They went to school with sneakers in 6 foot of snow and t-shirts. Like they didn't.
Yeah, I've heard.
Real high, then they were down here. You know?
Right. I've heard stories about the Harts, and you'd think they had an easy life, but they really didn't. And there were so many of them, so they had it pretty hard.
Yeah, and what he would do is, when good things were good, he'd buy a bunch of Cadillacs, and then he couldn't even run them. And then they tens and 20s of like Cadillacs on his property. Yeah. Crazy.
Right. There could be entire stories just sitting here talking about Stu Hart.
See, but these are the kind of men that were the foundation. We can't accept less, and that's why the business has changed.
And if you came from the dungeon, if you came from Stu Hart, then that meant that you were probably one of the better wrestlers out there. Yeah. So another school that was like at the top of the list when, you had to come from, some kind of one of the top 20 schools that were around at the time, and Stu Hart being one of them.
I don't know if I'd go there.
Yeah, that's a bit of a hike. Yeah. So
I might have wanted to do it when I was younger, but like sitting here now,
right now it might be troublesome. But this was great. I love to learn about these gentlemen. And especially ending with that, it was really nice with Stu Hart. So this was a very interesting episode, book reading of Wrestling Archives. And hope that you'll join us back next week on Wrestling Rewind. We are here every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. on Monte and the Pharaoh's YouTube. So we hope that you'll join us back next week and every week following with our rewind and archives and all the information that we can provide you with to make you an educated and informed professional wrestling fan.
Don't embarrass us.
No, not at all. For myself, Angel Amoroso, and my co-host, the Iron Man, Tommy Cairo. Until next time, have a nice night and a nice life. Good night.